I love that music. Makes me feel more important than I really am. Hi everybody, welcome back. I hope you had a wonderful lunch. From my perspective, there are two things that make conferences work or not. One is content, and we're hopefully taking care of that for you right now. And the other is catering. If you get either one of those wrong, you're going to have a disastrous conference. Anyway, on with the show. Couple of announcements just before we kick off the next session. Please visit the Global Village. You can do this if you're one of our participants online or whether you are here in person. There are 78 stands in the Global Village, and people joining it online can even book private video appointments with some of the stand holders. The Global Village today is going until 8 p.m. and tomorrow will be open from 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. So that's that. Now the next session, very interesting, and just linking back from this morning, we already had the representative from MTN, which runs a lot of mobile telephony in Africa. We already had the MTN representative saying we could and we should do more to encourage entrepreneurs. So with that in mind, I'm very interested in the sort of brief for this session. I'm wondering, for example, who are these non-traditional actors, and which collective goals should we be working towards, and what are the barriers faced by women and youth in entering this sector? And I'm just wondering, are there other hard-to-reach, disadvantaged groups who also have difficulty entering this space? With no more ado, I would like to introduce to you your moderator for this session. So please give a big round of applause for Christina Mahundwa of Deutsche Welle. Thank you. I hope I pronounced your name correctly.
That was such a good attempt.
Thank you.
Not unmuting yourself. So this is the in-person version of not unmuting yourself. We've just coming out into the real world now, and it seems we have to relearn a few things. Welcome, everybody. My name is Christine Munda, and thank you so much, Jeffrey, for that very warm introduction. That's right. I want to get right into our topic of discussion at this lab debate. I will be facilitating the conversation, as Jeffrey said. I'm a journalist for Germany's international broadcaster Deutsche Welle. And I like to say I hail from the great Zimbabwe, but I did grow up in the wonderful country of South Africa, as one of our panelists who's actually going to be on the platform is working from there. So in this lab debate, we're looking specifically at startups and how they can be a tool for empowerment as well as job creation. And I think we can all agree that these are much needed aspects on the African continent. We're seeing a lot more young people taking the risk in Africa and getting into the digital startup space. But they continue to face barriers, right? Very difficult barriers. And in this particular lab debate, we're trying to look at this new partnership or this renewed partnership between Europe and Africa and how we can make use of that, good use of that in terms of knowledge transfer, investment, to be able to bridge some of those gaps. So without wasting any more time, I will call up my panelists who will come to the stage in the very order that I call them in. So we'll start with Kwena Maboja, who is a Global Director in Marketing for SAP in South Africa. Motaz Helmi is the Chairman of AfriLabs. Dr. Peter Timmer is Head of Sustainable Business and Environment. This is for DEG. This is Germany's investment and development finance company. And our host, from the European Commission, he is in the Directorate General for International Partnerships, is Antti Kauhunen. So, if you would like to, you can give them a hand. Some of them have come from really far. South Africa, Egypt, Cologne in Germany, and Auntie, I believe you're based here in Brussels. Thanks for having us. Guys, it's good to see you. So here we are, having this conversation about startups, right? Digital transformation is a big aspect of what we're trying to do in terms of this partnership. But I guess I want to start with you, Kwena. Let's start by establishing just what we mean when we talk about digital startups and this potential that they have for empowerment and job creation on the continent of Africa specifically. What exactly, give us a picture if you can, of what potential that we're looking at there.
Yeah, so I guess, the first point of call would be to set the context a little bit in terms of, Africa, right? So my personal belief is that entrepreneurship is there to solve challenges and to, work towards, improving those challenges and leveraging whatever tools are necessary to do that. I think that from an Africa perspective, many of the challenges on the continent are related to, issues around sustainability. So whether it's education, healthcare, infrastructure, the like, most of these issues are related to sustainability, and therein is an opportunity for young people to come in and innovate and tackle the societal challenges that are being faced across African countries. At SAP as well, we believe that technology is a great enabler that can help us to scale solutions and innovation. So here it is an opportunity for Africa's youth who are digitally savvy, who are creative, to come in and solve challenges with the use of technology. And that presents immense opportunities for young people to play a role in terms of driving economic and social development in different African countries.
Okay, and Motas, you were nodding as Kwena was speaking there. I want you to elaborate on that and perhaps talk to us about some of these digital startups that you're seeing at AfriLabs. What are the patterns, what are the trends in terms of these startups that you're seeing and the impact that they're having?
So basically we are living a very interesting very interesting life now in the African innovation ecosystem. So generally, the amount of investment and inflow in the last year, it's tripled since, even after COVID, it's tripled. So last year we've seen around $6 billion USD comings inflow investment in the African digital ecosystem, and this is huge for Africa. This is triple, 3 times since COVID. And
wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's amazing actually that it's one of the most growing entrepreneurship and innovation ecosystem worldwide. And the interesting part of it is that it has definitely some challenges and a lot of opportunities. But from this $6 billion USD, 90% goes only to 4 countries. We can name it, like Nigeria, Egypt, South Africa, and Kenya. Yeah. So it's in terms of fair geographical distribution, it's a little bit challenging. So we still see it's very concentrated in some countries, and other countries doesn't have enough startup investment inflow. In terms of sector, so we've seen 72% of those investment goes to fintech, which is it's basically fintech. And what makes me really worry is that a sector like health tech and education, they don't secure more than 4% of the total investment and funding coming to the continent. And this is very alarming as well. For sure, we cannot force investors and investment to go in a specific sector, but it's an alarming reality that we have in the ecosystem. And we, as AfriLabs, we are present in 52 African countries. We have around 350 member hubs. But I think one of the main challenges is that till this very moment, we don't have a clear definition of what is a digital innovation hub. And this is very challenging when we work in the entrepreneurship ecosystem.
I want to have you pause on that particular point because I want to come back to that. Okay. Some of the reform that doesn't necessarily need monetary investment. Because I want Peter, for you to come in there. So we've heard that loads of money is being poured into this particular sector. We know that it's mostly going to fintech, and it's mostly going to 4 countries, as Motors is telling us. It's Kenya, Nigeria, South Africa, as well as Egypt. Can you tell us from an investment perspective, can you tell us a little bit about why fintech is such a favorite, and why not, for example, health tech and education technology, for example?
Well, thank you very much. That is a very good question, which I would try to answer in a bit of a roundabout way. So I'm from DEG, which is a development finance institution, which has a good footprint also in Africa, which we spend roughly 30% of our volume on. Total volume is, we have a portfolio of about 9 billion, invest 1.5 to 2 billion new in about 100 clients a year. Now, 2/3 of those are innovative or financial institutions, which then on-lend or on-invest into SMEs, thereby reaching the whole plethora of small companies, medium-sized companies that actually provide the jobs that we're talking about later. Nevertheless, what we also see, fintech is a great example, is that we have innovative businesses which, at least at the startup phase, pose a very high risk for financing institutions, for the banks providing loans, but also for the equity finance providing the growth capital, which the business is, which we are in. So we try to reach smaller equity funds, which then reach out to the smaller entrepreneurs, or actually we also reach out to fintechs, because they are able, by using digital tools, to reach out to even smaller and a broader the world out there of smaller startups, smaller entrepreneurs, the people we heard about this morning, which don't have a lot of growth value, which don't have a lot of security to offer to a bank, but need very quick, very small loans or investments. And this is where fintech comes in, because they provide that opportunity. They provide a great opportunity to reach out to a large economy and large group of clients. Health tech and others are maybe a bit more difficult, because they have a different business model, which we need to understand better as entrepreneurs, as banks, as investors. Let me stop there, and I think we'll discuss later a bit more about that.
Auntie, I guess I want to bring you here now, because here we are talking about the global gateway, this, Europe going out into the world, and I know Africa has a special place in Europe's global gateway plans. So here you're having it from an investment perspective. The money is flowing in, it's going to fintech, but we also want to tackle health, for example, on the continent. We want these digital innovations to help us tackle health. We're just coming out of a pandemic, and we've learned loads of lessons there. We have huge infrastructure gaps, and digital transformation means you need a level of skills within the working population. So how then does something like Gateway come in and bridge some of these financing gaps that have been pointed out, as you would imagine?
Well, thanks a lot, and it's really actually great to host you here. And thanks.
Auntie, I'm going to ask you to hold the mic right up here.
Yeah.
Because
okay. I hope it's better now. So and thanks for bringing up the global gateway. That's really actually very important in view of catalyzing investments, and particularly in Africa. We are saying that half of what we do under global gateways is going to the connectivity and also the software area that you mentioned, health and education in Africa. But perhaps on the digital entrepreneurship, I'd like to really come to that. I come from a private sector, and so the first thing, of course, for us is to partner so I come from public sector. We partner with the private sector. We need to find each other, and I think for that to understand what are the needs on both sides, we need a very good dialogue. And I think on the digital entrepreneurship side, all of us see the huge potential that there is in terms of quality jobs, productivity, innovations, and perhaps there. Also Europe has something to give based on the model that we've experienced. Maybe a couple of notions there. First, we've sort of build an ecosystem, a regulatory framework with the digital single market, digital decade, digital compass. And I think that could be something that allows the entrepreneurs to leverage digital technologies to scale up, to expand into new markets, and also learn across these ecosystems. So that could be, I think, something that we would like to bring to the table. It can be called like a human-centric model, and it's very much linked to sustainable green and digital transformations. So that's one thing. And second point I'd like to make is that, of course, for digital entrepreneurship to thrive, you need to have a good investment climate. That's something where we really want to work with our African partners in particular. And we do see great potential there. So we are working currently already on startup scene. We are working, for example, with the Tony Elumelu Foundation. Tony Elumelu was just in the opposite room a moment ago. I hope many of you had a chance to listen to his insights. This is very interesting work for us. And then the final point is that I think we really have common challenges to tackle, Europe and Africa. We really both stand to benefit from this increased cooperation. So we need to make digital a very key part of our partnership. It's really a perfect means to realize cooperation between Europe and Africa. And I think the best part of it is also that this brings people and businesses together. And I think that's the way to make Africa and you approach each other.
Thank you so much. You've really provided the perfect segue to get into you, Kwena, because you're sitting here as an African woman in this space, and we know that for many, many African women, it's just not possible to be in a position where you are because there are significant barriers. Can you talk about how we can help women entrepreneurs specifically in the digital space? What kind of support and help would they need?
Sure, and maybe just to also set the scene a little bit. So I work for SAP, which is one of the largest enterprise software organizations in the world. We support 400,000 customers in 180 different countries, and we have quite a strong footprint in the African continent. And part of our DNA at SAP, our vision is to help the world run better and improve people's lives. And what we mean by that is sustainability, right? Which I touched on in terms of the challenges. So we seek to drive a positive impact in the environment, in the economy, and in society. One of the key pillars that we focus on within our sustainability objectives is around zero inequality. In addition to our zero waste, which focuses on circular economy, and zero emissions, which focuses on climate action, zero inequality is a major pillar in terms of what we want to execute around sustainability. And of course, that includes, driving, for example, diversity and inclusion of women in the field. It includes driving social and inclusive entrepreneurship, so ensuring that social enterprises feature and that are female-led, and then also in terms of driving digital skills for women and youth to be able to take up the roles within the digital economy. In terms of the various barriers that are facing women, I think it goes without saying that we still see a large underrepresentation of women in the STEM world. It's actually, for me, it's baffling that we still have this conversation 5 years later, where still we're not seeing enough women entering into the tech world. It's unacceptable that there's only 1 out of 4 computer science graduates that leave school. And out of those, only 30% of them, once they start their careers, stay in the tech space, the rest exit. So we need to address, first of all, for me, it's a mindset shift, which I think is still prevailing, that, tech is something for the boys. This is still a prevalent mindset.
Age,
This is the thing. It starts at a young age, and therefore already girls are precluded from pursuing careers in technology. So when they are selecting subjects, they're not necessarily going for those tech-related subjects, which then has knock-on effects down the line. And then furthermore, at work, diversity and inclusion, the systems in workplaces don't necessarily support female entrepreneurs, female leaders to grow their careers. So there's a challenge that we need to look at there. So I think that, looking at all of these challenges, there are a number of interventions that we need to be thinking about. For SAP, we run a number of programs to drive the inclusion of women within the tech space, starting at that young age, right? So we run a program called Africa Code Week, which is a public-private partnership with UNESCO and about 130 other different on-the-ground partners, where we come together and we train young kids on basic coding skills. And out of those cohorts, about half of those are girls. And so far, we've trained about 10 million youth in Africa since 2015. And the only way that we've been able to reach that scale is through the power of the partnerships. So partnerships, of course, is a huge topic during this EDD. Yeah. This has helped us to drive the scale that we need to move forward quickly and to have large impact in a short period of time. So that's just one of the initiatives that we look at. And we believe that, there are various interventions at each stage of educational journey.
Right.
So another program is in partnership with the universities, again, that word partnership, right, where we support universities with SAP curriculum that provides young people a internationally recognized certification. Remember I mentioned 400,000 customers in the world, where those youth can then go and, if they want to be employed by those customers or start their own businesses and partner with those customers, we work with universities to bridge that gap and create industry-relevant skills that once students graduate, they are able to immediately take place in the job market. One last program I'll mention around skills is also our Skills for Africa program, which focuses on unemployed graduates. We know that this is a challenge in African countries where many students graduate and yet they find themselves unemployed because of that gap that remains in industry in terms of having the relevant skills. So we recruit unemployed graduates, we give them that certification for free that is internationally recognized. We place them with a customer or a partner, and 95% of them finalize employment within those areas once they complete the program. And again, almost half of those cohorts are women.
Fantastic. Yeah. So thanks so much for that really sort of concrete example, because this is the thing. We're talking about all these digital jobs that we want to create, but we need people to have the skills to be able to take up that space. Motaz, I want to come back to you because I think a lot of us can wrap our heads around a typical brick and mortar kind of a business. But let's talk about these digital startups. What specific needs do they have? You were opening up the conversation around some of the regulation, how they are sort of characterized by policymakers. Talk to us a little bit more about that in terms of why did these businesses need to not just be looked at as small, medium enterprises, but they have a unique space, and why policymakers need to shift their thinking around these businesses.
Yeah, thanks for the question. It's one of the main challenges that we face in the ecosystem is that we actually, till this very moment, we don't have any clear definition what is a startup and what is a digital innovation.
This is in Africa, right? In African context.
Yeah, definitely. So actually, we do have like 4 startup acts only in the African context for 4 government, but the vast majority, like 50 governments, they didn't yet started creating their own startup act. And this is very difficult when you deal with a startup the same way you deal with a small and medium enterprises, because their needs and challenges are totally different. And this is something we're like always talking about and trying to convince government to come up with this policy where it can support and can really label and define what is a startup is and how we can support it. And if we can define it, we can actually spot it. And when we spot it, we can measure it. And when we measure it, we can improve it. But till this very moment, it's very fragmented. So there are a lot of initiatives to support it, but it always like you can say it's very limited because we don't have a structured ecosystem where the government or the big entities can come and support. So what we are trying to do is, in AfriLab is really to create this infrastructure of network, and then at the same time we are trying to create business simulation and put those startups in different scenarios and see how they will perform in different market outlooks in order to recommend policies for governments and financial institutions or big entity. So I mean, one of the things that it really will help a lot the startup ecosystem and the innovation is really to come up with startup acts to make them really perform. And then there are a lot of like new technologies that is not regulated till now. Like if you think about like smart cities, like there are like government now are speaking about smart cities, but in real world, do you really regulate like smart cities devices? Like if you come to the IoT, Internet of Things, do we really have the regulation to support and help startups to come up with solutions and hardware and the communication devices? Because this is not the case in a lot of, unfortunately, a lot of African countries. So if we talk about the fourth industrial revolution and we don't have regulations to support it, I think it will face a lot of challenges to enhance and to improve our infrastructure in Africa.
This is the first time I hear industry calling for regulation. But you understand exactly where he's coming from, that there has to be definitions here. Peter, I wondered if you were liking what you were hearing from Motors here, you know, the efforts that are being undertaken so as to get our public sector policymakers to understand. But we're still having this issue of financing being an issue. And as an investor, if for all those digital entrepreneurs that are listening to the conversation today, what do they need to do to better position themselves to access money from investors? And I'm talking even about the women more specifically. How can they position themselves to be able to procure sustainable funding?
Well, thank you very much. I'm afraid I don't have the one silver bullet here for everybody listening in, but you asked me what resonates with me. So first of all, I think the word both of you mentioned, partnerships, is extremely important because they can create the environment that we need to grow the startups, to enable actually to embolden young people or anybody actually to form a startup and form a company which then can grow up the ladder of the various growth phases. This will need great regulation, good regulation to provide that. It will also, of course, need financing. Not as much at the beginning, maybe, a little loan, maybe a little seed financing, but over the growth of the company, it will need more. And I think the more you go up this ladder of financing, at the top maybe the large, you know, when you're then finally have made it and you can get the 100 million loan, that's the top. You need a lot, but you need to start out very slowly. And I think institutions like AfriLabs or others are very great here because they help introduce the skills that one needs to talk also to financiers.
Right.
To say, okay, what exactly is my idea?
Yeah.
What do I need for that? What do I have to offer? What kind of money do I need? What is my business plan going forward? What kind of security do I have or do I not have?
Yeah.
And then when I grow to a certain stage, the questions stay the same, the answers may be different. So how do we answer that? It's difficult for a bank, but it's a lot easier if you have a large institution which you can measure by the rating tools that you have. Going further down the line, it becomes more and more difficult to assess. And at the very end, at the very beginning, better to say, of the startup, for a bank it becomes unbelievably complicated to provide a loan because we know, I don't know the number for Africa, but it's 1 in 10, 1 in 100 that actually survives that startup phase.
Yeah.
So if you're giving a loan, 1 in 100 is not a great chance for getting your money back. So there you need to provide equity funding, seed funding, to enable that growth. And in especially risky environments, actually, I think we need what Antti just provided. Something like the Global Gateway or the initiatives started by the EU or by the national states providing a startup act and providing money, startup money, concessional money to help the first phase and then bring them to a stage where they can actually access finance from first startup financiers, venture capital funds, larger funds, banks, and loans. And maybe one last, how does DG answer that? We provide ourselves the financing for the larger companies. We go through the financial intermediaries, the local banks, to go to the SMEs in the very risky environments. Even we have to be careful. But also we go and invest into startup venture capital funds, and sometimes also the seed money through programs by the German government and sometimes hopefully by the EU, where we can reach out and finance very small ones. And then they are great. We have the small fintechs, which have a little app which creates the possibilities for the small entrepreneur to actually very easily access loan. But we all have something, like I just read, something that we financed, a company called Flair, where they provide the connection between ambulances and hospitals on a very app-based product, bringing together these people and enabling the environmental or the health tech example that you were looking for earlier. So these kind of things we can invest through these programs, and growing up the ladder we can go further. But I think the first step is creating knowledge and a good environment, a conducive environment for the startups to enable them to work. And this, I think, goes for male or female entrepreneurs. I don't see that much difference. There is, of course, more difficult for females all over the world, and especially potentially in Africa, to gain that first trust of someone that they can get financing from. But the basics are the same. You need to, as I said earlier, provide a good story and a convincing story.
Yeah. A good and convincing story. Ladies and gentlemen on the floor, please don't let me have all the fun here. We do have an opportunity for questions and answers. So I just want to maybe get an indication if somebody can just raise their hand. Somebody have a question or will have a question? I just want to see how much more I can indulge myself. Okay, so not in the meantime, but at some point just literally give me a wave. That is the raise the hand function in person. Ante, from everything that you've been hearing now, I'm just wondering from a European Commission perspective, you're listening to industry voice and you can see exactly how the efforts that the Global Gateway agenda would make is really, really important to at least open the way for private sector investment to come onto the continent. What more would you like to see in terms of this partnership between Europe and Africa? What would you like to see on that front as we try to realize digital transformation in Africa?
Well, thanks a lot. I mean, I'm hearing great things about women empowerment, about the ecosystem, about the financing. It's really great. And I started by talking about dialogue, and so I'd like to come back to that because I think that's something that we can offer. We already have a platform, in fact, on which we can exchange best practices. It's called Digital for Development Hub, and it brings together the public and private sector, but also CSOs, academia, researchers from Europe and Africa and beyond. And it's, if you wish, you can it brings together the political will of the public sector, the creative force of the private sector, the financial capacity of financiers, as well as the innovations then of researchers. And Kuena here and the SAP has been really pioneering this work, and we're really grateful for that input that we are getting from there. But perhaps then from our side, I mean, we can go back a bit to the global gateways, and what we want to do with the global gateways is to implement that through flagships and really transformative, big, interesting, things. First of them, I'd like to mention two. We have something called Digital Innovation Bridge. The purpose of this flagship is to strengthen the ecosystems in Africa in particular, and to promote the intercontinental cooperation between stakeholders. And what we are currently doing is we are working with digital startups, investors, public and private actors, to create this bridge together so that we can overcome the policy obstacles, the skills development, access to finance issues, and so that we can, undo barriers to digital entrepreneurship. So that's one. The second thing which I'd like to mention is the Investing in Young Businesses in Africa initiative. So this is something that we call a Regional Team Europe initiative.
Yes.
And launched last year already. And the idea is to see really, how can we address those things that are bottlenecks, holding back small and early stage companies and entrepreneurs. And there we put a lot of weight on the women and young people. So we try to work through these kind of flagships. And then what we, in terms of our financial firepower try to do is we need both technical assistance, but we do need also financial instruments so that we can leverage financing. And Thomas was referring to that. We have a tool called the EFSD Plus, the European Fund for Sustainable Development, where we offer guarantees on a portfolio basis to DFIs, and they then can target support to digital entrepreneurs, for example. And we've just recently launched a call, and we are expecting DFIs to give us interesting proposals in this area.
Oh, wow, okay.
By the 12th of July, in fact. And there is a specific MSME window there where I think, we can hopefully get very interesting proposals. So, with this sort of combined convening power,
that's right.
Working on the flagships, and then using our leverage together with the TA, I think we can put together a package that is, I think, rather inviting and interesting for the stakeholders, and then we can work together on that. Thank you.
You've convinced me, but I wondered how Moataz feels about that. What do you make of what you're hearing? So the development finance institutions being roped in as well, and the money then trickles down to startups like the ones that you're overseeing and coaching. What do you make of that model?
So it's very interesting because I think we're having a discussion this morning about how financial instruments can help, like, actually the ecosystem. Because here is my thought, like, so what we've seen with grant specifically, that it didn't help on the innovation ecosystem, and it ends up with a whole generation of African entrepreneurs who knows how to write a proposal, but they have a problem to design their product. So I think it's very important when we design financial instruments to support a startup that we really invest and put money to invest on that product, because this is the kind of partnership where it has to be win. I mean, it has to win it, right? It's not like just you give money and help the entity on that regard, because as I mentioned, like there are a lot of startups knows exactly how to develop a proposal very good, but at the same time they don't know how to create their product market fit, for example. So it's very challenging now, and it ends up that we see a lot of failure of the startup. So our recommendation that we build more investment structure and investment instrument to help those startups and be like in a relationship and partnership that really goes beyond just having cash with the startup, but really like making sure that this startup with this innovation can create its product market fit and can expand within the market. So it doesn't mean that I'm against 100% grants to startups, but what I'm saying here is let's keep everything available for like all the financial instruments available for the ecosystem, but with more focus to investment, because investment is enforce startups and entrepreneurs to really think about their product and service very much, and make sure that this product or service is profitable, is the only way to make it a healthy and the powerful organization and that can continue and be sustainable.
Okay, that's an interesting. Otherwise, people learn. So what you're saying is entrepreneurs know how to secure funding, but beyond that, because they write a good proposal, but because it's grant and not investment, so to say,
exactly,
it doesn't progress. I hope you're catching his drift there, because that's a very interesting perspective. So it's not just about securing that initial funding, but it's really about going the mile and surviving as a business. Okay, so I was wondering if you, Kwena, could come back into the conversation here. You're obviously working for SAP. This is a very big player in the ecosystem, so to say. What lessons could digital entrepreneurs on the continent learn from an SAP?
So I'm just listening to the conversation around securing grants and finance, and it got me thinking around, it's all very well and good to secure finance and investment, but how do you stay sustainable? You need to partner with the private sector. You need to partner with organizations such as SAP that have a strong foothold in terms of the B2B space, for example. At SAP, we have a long-standing culture of actually working with startups and incorporating them as part of our business, where, for example, we've got the SAP.io program where we incubate startups, we give them access to our technology, our knowledge, our expertise, and then we help them get access to markets, access to actual customers that they can leverage by building on our technology stack, which then creates a win-win for everybody, right? Because then we get to have the latest innovation and the startups gain access to customers, right? So once you've gotten the investment, how you keep your business sustainable, you need customers. So I think one of the areas is to really think about, for startups, is to think about how they can partner with large organizations such as SAP to leverage the existing programs that are run by large corporations in order to get access to this. And, we talked about the D4D hub, development hub. SAP is one of the founding members of the D4D coalition, which is a group of like-minded, technology companies in Europe, all coming together to collaborate and innovate around digital transformation in Africa. And I think, following this conversation around the global gateway, it will be interesting to talk about what collaboration looks like between the D4D coalition as well as, this global gateway fund to really bring the startups into the public sector and to create kind of this scale that can help startups to sustain their businesses. So that would be my challenge for both sides, actually, is that think about how you can partner, how we can collaborate, the shared value that can be earned from such collaboration.
Okay, and Peter, can you come back into the conversation here? Or, Auntie, did you want to respond to that from what you've heard, in fact, from the two panelists now, before we get to you, Peter?
Well, I think that what you're saying is exactly the right thing to do. Is to use the D4D hub to as a sort of a, growth place for then looking at what we can support in investment. So I think it's great. It really fills that place very well.
Peter, we're talking about financing here, and I don't know, what kind of money are we talking about when we talk about investing in a typical... I know this is not a very easy question, but, we're talking about investment and securing money. From your perspective, can you just give us figures of some sort that we can maybe wrap our heads around in terms of the kind of investment that people would be looking to secure in this space? A typical fintech investment, right? What are we talking about there? That given what you told us, that there's a 1 in 10 chance that this business will actually survive. So there's always that thinking. Do you have any numbers for us that we can just hold on to a little bit to just give us some context?
I think I must disappoint you a little bit here, because I think there is such a wide variety of fintechs and startups. So the one just requires heart blood, by someone really believing in his idea and securing the customers, as Gunnar just said. And the other might already have the necessity for some very difficult hardware, some very complex hardware, which now actually can go to the likes of SAP here and buy this hardware on the cloud.
Right.
So you might actually need a lot less investment these days than you might, especially in the digital fintech area, than you might have needed a few years ago.
Okay.
But then again, I really can't give you a number. But what I wanted to say is, it really resonated with me what was said earlier, because I think I work in a development finance and investment institution. We invest in the private sector because, for the reason that was said, if we invest into something that someone that needs, and we want the money back from him or her, that will then provide the incentive for this person to try and do that. And in some cases, we absolutely need grants in very difficult surroundings, and in other cases, this might be incentive enough. So we need coming back to the thing we started up with, we need partnerships between the public and the private sector to go there.
Okay. Well, there's 2 minutes on the clock for us, and I just want to get maybe a closing remark from each of you, and I guess we'll go in this order. Motaz, we'll start with you, and then I'll call up the others as we go.
So I think we're in a very interesting era for the digital innovation ecosystem, and having Europe and Africa creating initiatives and projects that can really enforce partnership and access to finance, capacity building is something that really needed for the African innovation ecosystem.
Thanks so much, Quina.
So I think just in terms of the role of the private sector, there is a role to play. We cannot expect public sector or civic society to do this by themselves. Private sector has a role to play. I think where we bring value is by providing, the tools to enable startups to be able to scale their innovations, the access to the customers, but also, leveraging these private-public partnerships can let us scale the solutions. So, of course, building on the D4D coalition, taking that work forward, and, of course, exploring opportunities with the EU delegates, etc.
Yeah. Peter?
Well, I can just say we have our motto is financing sustainable entrepreneurship, and I really look forward to doing that and partnering with all of the people on the stage today, because I think this is a very great group, and if we partner up, we'll have a good go at it.
And Antti?
Yes, partnering indeed, and we do believe in the transformational capacity of digitalization. So therefore, we want to put it as a very big part of the big picture of sustainable economic and inclusive growth. And we think that supporting digital entrepreneurship is really the entry point. That's where we need to work, and we're very eager to do so. It's a powerful tool to achieve the digital age.
Fantastic. Thanks, everybody. Thank you to Quina, Motaz, Peter, and Antti. Thank you very much. And that does it for our panel. Thanks, everybody, for your attention.
Well, thank you, Christina, and thank you to your whole panel. That was a fantastic discussion. And what struck me particularly was the absolute hunger and desire to bring investment to the right areas, not just to fintech, but to health tech, to education tech. And I think if I take away one thing or one phrase, one tweetable phrase, one hashtag, if you like, from this session, it would be zero inequality. I like that concept. That's really, really powerful. So, quickly, just to move us on, just a quick bit of housekeeping. Don't forget, if you log into the EDD platform, if you're perhaps here today but not tomorrow, whatever, you can follow the whole of the conference on the EDD platform. You can create your own conference agenda. You can chat with other participants and all of that kind of thing. It's a fantastic opportunity. For those online, again, I would just reiterate, don't forget to visit the digital or the virtual global village, because there's an awful lot of activity going on there, and it's very well worthwhile keeping up with that. The next session here will be in 10 minutes time at 2:35, and it's on empowering digital innovation in Africa. This will be a report back. So thank you very much for now, and take 10 minutes. We'll see you soon.